Steven here. Welcome to the COPING-20 show, the only show on Facebook and YouTube, where in about 20 minutes an episode, we're going to figure out how together we're going to stay as positive and as present as possible as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me start off by saying you're stuck with me this episode, but this is going to be one of the most important mindset episodes we've ever done to date. I'm going to share with you the absolute secret to unlocking positivity and presence of mind while we take on the final and worst wave, or surge as some call it, yet to come. And this episode, well, that's why it's called the number one mindset hack you need to face the final wave. First off, please help me out and share this to your timeline because I'm still looking for guests, particularly those in healthcare on the front lines and those who work in the small business service industry to come on the show and shine their amazing light to all of the followers of this project. Sharing is the best way you can continue to support the folks who've been on the show. The more organic followers I have, the less I have to pay Facebook to boost. And this is a grassroots show, so it is very, very much appreciated. I would rather take that money and instead of using it to boost, I would rather donate it to businesses in need, as well as for donating PPE to healthcare workers. A small action or change can really make a big difference, kind of like wearing a mask, staying at least 6 feet apart, and avoiding crowds and gatherings, which I'm confident that all of my listeners are doing. I hope. So I had a revelation today in talking to a psychologist about everything that's been, transpiring. I'm not a psych, but I am, as some of you know, a learning behavior specialist. One staple technique in my field is functional behavioral assessment, where we really try to nail down the exact cause and purpose called the function of a behavior. It is in these deep, profound thoughts that I found the mindset hack I was seeking. You see, so many people right now are having a very hard time coping with the fact that it is simply unsafe for anyone and everyone to have Thanksgiving gatherings, Christmas gatherings, and the like. But all we are being told is not to do it. You ultimately cannot successfully change a behavior without replacing it with another one that serves the same purpose. No, I'm not talking about virtual gatherings, although that in itself is a privilege that we often take for granted. A virtual gathering is a great way to still honor and pay respect to the time of year it truly is, and to do it safely. But so many of us that are fortunate enough to have made it this far are willing to now sacrifice and risk everything for ourselves and the ones we care about because we are just, quote unquote, so sick of this. Well, let me tell you, it is not a political, not an arguable, not a deniable, not a hideable, nor in any way, shape, or form a logical rationale when hospitals are filled to capacity across the country, which effectively renders many of the advances in treatment a moot point. Let me lead with the good projection here. Disclaimer, this is my projection, but I have the privilege to be able to research this stuff every day, so you, my friends and listeners, do not have to. I've talked to many other people. I've looked at the logistics and the metrics, and I'm here to tell you that if you just hold on a little bit longer, light is at the end of the tunnel. Now, this is not some superficial silver lining. I'm here to give you a mindset shift that will make everything a great deal better for a lot of you out there. I want you to take out your calendars right now, or open the app on your iPhone or Android. Are you ready for this mindset breakthrough? I want you to look at March. Look at March 13th. That is approximately a year ago from when this all started to get really serious in this country. I want you to switch to the month of April, and I want you to make an event on April 2nd. Yes, I'm avoiding the first because I don't want anyone to interpret this in the wrong way. Make an event on April 2nd and call it Tentative Spring Giving and Springmas. I'm going to make the bold guesstimate prediction that for many individuals, especially those not in a high-risk category, and ultimately, especially for those that are in any priority group of vaccinations, that you can resume certain aspects of your life then, that at this point you realistically cannot and should not be doing. Moreover, things that you would do so casually before all of this started, and maybe even got a taste of in June, at least, well, here in Illinois, but now miss once again so dearly. Well, I am, to borrow words from the great Dr. Fauci, cautiously optimistic that by then, many people will have the option to be vaccinated and other treatment breakthroughs will be widely available to fill in the gaps until June, when it's even more widely available, in theory. Now, individuals that like to read news aggregations and go on Microsoft News, Apple News, etc., will probably very well think I'm being too optimistic, but the reality is fear sells. I've seen so many clickbait, fear-based article headlines that simply report the same information about a promising vaccine, only to emphasize the negative cautionary footnotes. It is getting to be an overload of information, but when you boil it all down, the reality is the fact that we are even this close to 2 revolutionary emergency use authorized vaccines in less than a year is nothing short of amazing. If you draw the projection out, even factoring in some possible setbacks, and yes, even if it doesn't end up holding at 90 to 95% efficacy, it still will be a game changer. Even a vaccine that was available to most high-risk healthcare and essential and critical industries would be a game changer. We cannot allow all of the quote-unquote, but don't expect life to be normal until 2022 projections to rule and take over our minds. I mean, think of it this way. If those were all correct, firstly, then we would be happy with a 50% efficacy shot at this point, but that got exceeded by far. I'll add one point to that. Is it possible that some of the anti-vaxxer individuals that are driving the pandemic right now will end up helping us in a backhanded way by relinquishing their dose to us? I wouldn't rule it out, or do, and let me know in the comments why I'm crazy to be at all optimistic. Again, if the vaccines end up being 50% effective and we don't get additional therapeutic breakthroughs, this may not play out. But just imagine it upholds to even 70 to 80% effective. Getting that shot could end most of the hardship for you. And I'm not done explaining this mindset breakthrough. In fact, I've only just begun. The second thing I want to point out here in the setup to it all, though, is how do we define normal? We may need to adjust our definition of normal. The great Simon Sinek states, quote unquote, going back to abnormal should be the focus. But beyond that, I would think, not to speak for anyone else, but I would think that most people right now just long for normal enough. If you can't wait till you never have to wear a mask again and can go to a packed nightclub, well, then I'm afraid I don't have good news on the horizon for you yet. But the term I am creating for this is, quote, with the grain of normality, quote. I look forward strongly and solely to the day where going to the dentist, so I no longer have to play the health versus health game, as the health secretary would say, is not potentially a life or death decision. We're teaching 100% in person in my classroom. I look forward to when that is not a potentially life or death situation. I look forward to when taking myself or a date out to dinner, yes, inside the dining room of a restaurant, inside, without having to make crazy logistical and precautionary plans and questions to the manager beforehand. What kind of menu do you offer outside? Can you sit me in the back behind a wall because I'm the only one that believes in aerosols? I want that to not be necessary, and I want that to not be a life or death decision. Visiting non-high-risk members of my family in small groups without doing a 14-day no-contact whatsoever period. And lastly, when just a cough within 12 feet isn't 14 days of hell. Once again, going bold on this episode, as I'm going solo, that is possible by April, in my opinion. And once more, to those that think I'm being too forward, just remember that there are drugs you may not even know about yet that are being tested right now. One of them is an SSRI that has special anti-inflammatory properties It's fluvoxamine. Let me tell you, if a tertiary study confirms the 100% hospitalization prevention rate that it has shown to have earlier this month, it was reported earlier this month, that's going to be, in my opinion, a miracle drug of 2020. You can treat your COVID depression, obsessive compulsivity, and immune inflammation with one pill. And if the FDA approves it for new label usage, do those fear clickbait articles telling you not to get too excited because this still has to go through production and roll out, life's not going to be normal still even with this for another million years and then we'll be on to the next pandemic, does that apply? No or no? You got it right. No, because guess what? You can get Luvox tomorrow morning if you needed it, if it was clinically indicated, just not yet for COVID-19. So, with the setup and, well, that premise complete, here's the mindset hack that you've been waiting for. Are you ready for it? Do you put that in your calendar? That's going to be another behavioral tool. That's going to be the structure, the positive reinforcement, and moreover, the structure. You know how so many people like to do New Year's resolutions, even though I'll give a plug to David Wygant. If you see my podcast episode with him, you would know that those all go down the drain, or as he says, they go down the January toilet. But a lot of people like to do New Year's resolutions. That being here nor there, many at least attempt to forego joy, splurging on food, celebrations after January, in that first week when they go back to work. And they begin a transitional, focused phase through January, February, and March, ideally. That's the goal, at least. Well, here you go, folks. The trick I realized today through good conversation is this. You can still have your Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations much as the way you would want to. The only difference is time. Right now, just before Thanksgiving, pretend this is that transitional period, as I call it, after New Year's Eve celebrations. Now it's time to focus and lose that weight you need to lose, get stronger, write your life story and goals, take action, you name it. Front load the working willpower phase and flip it with the holiday phase. Now is it making sense? Are you seeing it now? Spring giving and spring miss are coming. You aren't giving anything up. We are just rescheduling things. You see, timing is everything. Time is the best healer, they say. It also is the single most important variable in really anything. Think about it. The difference between someone who died and someone living is time, regardless of how they died. The difference between a former addict and a recovered addict is mostly time. What we must continue to remember, even though today's show is all about personal power, is that the people who really are sacrificing the most and potentially exposing themselves to lethal high viral loads day after day that could make anyone high risk, regardless of risk factor or not, are the frontline heroes in healthcare. And this is why that is where I'm ending this episode. That's where we're going to end today. As busy as they are, if there is a CNA, nurse, doctor, physician assistant, anyone of that sort who's willing to spare just 15 minutes to come on this show and have this important eye-opening perspective, to share that perspective in conversation, that is, I would absolutely love and be honored to have you. So reach out to me. You are the one that deserves the celebration the most when this is all over. To honor our frontline heroes, not only am I inviting one on the show, but they will get a free pack of FDA-authorized KN95 respirator masks, because I believe that these heroes need the best protection even when they're not inside of their working environment. And these are from Powacom Labor Insurance Supplies, distributed here in the USA, in New York, from Ball Chain Manufacturing, their subsidiary, bonafidemasks.com. These are widely regarded as the most legit protective masks or respirator masks that you can get your hands on right now. And I have a discount for everyone else that watched episode 16 of the show, but for you, just let me know where to send them and it will be free. You will also get a gift card to your favorite small business restaurant of your choice, if they offer gift cards, to enjoy when it is safe and, as I say, with the grain of normality, as we've discussed. I want to thank everyone for metaphorically tuning in this evening. Once again, please share, especially if you know a healthcare worker who may be interested in coming on the show. We'll see you next time. This is COPING-20. Your host, Stephen, over and out.